Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another photo critique. I'm Toby.
And I'm Christina.
And we've got a handful of images that we are going to critique this evening. Very short and sweet here. So we're going to dive right in. Christina, would you like to start?
Sure, yeah. So the first thing that I notice about this image is, well, one, the horizon is at an angle. So even though the car is pretty straight, it looks like that maybe it's angled at or parked at an angle on a downhill. So anyway, that's not that big a deal, but I did notice that. There's also this stuff right here, some farm equipment, and this right over here that's a little bit distracting. That might be something that I might try to clone out and kind of get rid of. But other than that, I mean, I think this is a nice photo. I might crop these things out, the ones at the bottom. You either have them...
The chrome bumper?
The chrome bumper. You then have all of it or you have none of it. We've talked before about distinctive shapes that can draw your eye out of the frame. And what you want is for your viewer's eye to kind of walk its way through the image instead of getting caught up on something like this and then losing interest.
Right. Now, I'm not sure I would say parked. I might say abandoned. But, you know, obviously with actually just the 24 millimeter on a 6D. So 24 millimeters on a full frame is quite wide. That is wider than 18 on a crop. But I think a better approach here may have been to get down a little bit lower and shoot up towards the car. That could have hidden these objects back here and also dealt with the horizon line, which I have trouble telling whether or not it's just a hill back there or in fact it is actually an angle. But because the hood of the car and especially the roof of the car feels so straight, I'm okay with that. But I agree with this intersection right here, just that little bit isn't great. And I think this is one of those neat places where maybe the whole scene is kind of hard to capture because of things around. And so you can really zoom in on details like the hood ornament and the chrome versus the very brown rustiness of the hood and the cracked glass. And this is where, you know, way back we had a diptych assignment to put two side by side, and this is one of those places where you could put a couple images together, and any one of those images might not be an amazing strong image on its own, but several of them together makes a nice complement to each other and tells a story. I love that it also has, this has been geotagged. It's got its GPS location in there, so if we wanted to take the time, we could see exactly where Tanner took this picture. Whoopsie. But we're moving on to Kovacs, icicle in the foreground and a frozen lake in a valley with the mountains in the background from Hungary.
This actually looks like a place not too far from here. It looks like Indian Pond at Madame Cherie's.
I bet nobody knows what you're talking about.
They don't, but it kind of looks like
There are some similarities there.
This is sort of cool.
You sound hesitant.
Well, I like the symmetry in this image. You know, it's not completely symmetrical, but it's enough that you know, that there's a good bit of sort of organization and pleasing shapes that you can tell. The icicle is cool, but I don't know how well these two things, the background and the icicle, work together in this particular image.
I feel like there's a lot of similarities with Tanner's in that, you know, trying to tell this whole story of cold and frozenness and icicle, and you know what? It just ends up being too much. And in Tanner's there was stuff in the background that just ended up being too much and kind of detracting from. And I think that is happening here as well. Keep it simple, stupid. Now, Kovacs, I'm certainly not calling you stupid, but repeat that mantra to yourself, folks, as you're out there photographing, and really think about what is your subject, and really keep it simple around your subject and try to isolate as much as possible.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. You know, I'm trying to think whether or not I'd like this image more if more of the background was in focus, if it was a lot more in focus, as well as the icicle. Because I don't know. I mean, I sort of get the idea that, you're trying to showcase that it's really cold, and maybe you're watching this from a window, or maybe you're holding it, I don't know. But, or holding the icicle. But yeah, but I can't tell. I don't know. It definitely points on the symmetry, but I don't know. I'm not
I agree with that.
loving this photo.
I think other interesting things to have tried here is, and now this is a pretty small icicle, but maybe it gets a little bigger up top, is to really capture some of the reflection that's happening. I mean, we can see bits of the hills on the side of this icicle here.
Yeah.
And so that could be an interesting photograph. But as this stands as it is, it's just... it feels a little cluttered without actually being cluttered. And there's something over here too, a house or something. It's just in focus enough and just out of focus. It's right on that kind of, I'm going to use the word uncanny, or that phrase uncanny valley, although it doesn't necessarily apply to that. Do you know uncanny valley? That is when a robot or an animated person looks just a little bit too real and creeps us out. And so there's just something my mind is starting to make out over there that bothers me a little bit. I love the crispness of the icicle.
Yeah.
And I love some of the hints of the reflection in it, and I think that would be more of a story there that we'd be interested in seeing. Thank you, Kovacs. This is not cold. This is Mikal's Flower. It doesn't say that. I'm just going to... oh, no, it does actually. That is the file name. Flower.
This is a nice picture. You know, I don't really have any feedback to give because I don't know that you could do this any better. I mean, it's keeping it simple. Yeah, it's very simple. It's the composition is really great, and Why do you say the composition is really great? Can you tell us a little bit more about what you're thinking there? The main bud, the center of the flower, is, you know, in the bottom 2/3 of the frame. So it follows the rule of thirds, and you know, it's in focus, and that is clearly the subject, and it's very crisp and in focus. The only thing I might do is just make it a little bit brighter. I might just bump up the exposure a little bit, but that's it, really. I mean, it's a nice shot.
Now I'm thinking back a few weeks. I gave Corey a hard time in the not critiqued section. Not a hard time, but he had a picture of this log that had laid down with kind of mushrooms in the foreground, and there was a good bit of foreground in that was out of focus. We have that here as well, but I have much less issue here because of this soft simplicity to this. I feel like this soft leading foreground is fine. There's nothing my brain tries to make sense of. It's clearly petals of the flowers that leads into our clear subject. Right.
I mean, there's a lot of lines that are leading to the center of the flowers. So, you know, whether or not they're very sharp or out of focus, you can very clearly see them. So I think that's a big part of it. One thing about this image, though, it doesn't have a ton of impact for me. It's, you know, it's a great image. It's very well done, technically speaking, and then, you know, compositionally speaking as well. So I might frame it and put it up on a wall. It's a very beautiful flower. But I don't know that it does anything new, or, you know, certainly nothing that we can critique.
We've gone back and forth about talking about impact, and I think we really should try to make mention of that more often because, you know, not every image can have impact, but we want them to often, especially ones that we're critiquing, because we want there to be something to really latch onto. And, you know, I don't mean this as a slam, or, you know, what's the opposite of a compliment? A critique?
Yeah, feedback.
Feedback. Well, I'm just saying that, you know, I think this is something that you could see on a hotel wall in a hotel room, which would be nice flower. You'd be like, oh, that's a nice picture. But it, you know, it's not that.
Yeah, I mean, wouldn't you be psyched if one of your pictures wasn't displayed in a hotel?
I would be psyched.
All right.
Okay. All right. On that note, hotel photography moving on. Thank you, Mikhail. Then we got Mike's A Plane Landing. So far tonight, every picture's been from a Canon. Sorry, folks shooting anything else. I know sometimes that annoys you. I hear from people that are like, why did you do only Canons? We didn't pay attention to that. Just happened. They've been each a different Canon. T3i, 700D, 6D, and now we got 70D.
Yeah, well, people will complain.
That's true. All right. Well,
so
I love everything about this image except for one thing, but you go first.
Yeah, I think the only thing that I don't love about this image is that little bit of stuff sticking out from the bottom of the frame.
Exactly. Yep.
Everything else is great.
Yep. It's, you know, I like the composition. It's off-center a little bit, following the rule of thirds. Picture a tic-tac-toe grid on here, or actually we could just go over here to the develop module briefly and grab that. And you can see that it's lined up very nicely on that third over on the right. And so we could bring it in just a little bit to get rid of, well, let's click on the lock so we keep our aspect ratio, and then drag it in just a little bit, and somewhere around there would be good. I was watching, I didn't want to cut that one light half off. We still got that little bit of wire there, but otherwise it's good.
Yep.
The clouds work well here too, and that's not something you could control, but I feel like we have just a little bit of a blue spot around the plane, and that all looks really nice.
Yeah, and the lights below the plane really act as a nice balance for all the negative space underneath the plane. This is a picture that I could totally see, you know, being good editorial image for, you know, like an ad where you can add text over here and over here, and yeah.
Yep,
So
which is
nice.
often something those photographers have to think about as they are out shooting and making those shots. Yep, looks very good. All your metadata looks great. And nice plane landing, Mike. T5. We continue with the Canons, but every single picture has been a different Canon, as I said already. Now, our black and white. What would you like to say about this? This is from Jeff.
Well, I love the textures in this image. There's a lot of different textures.
And that's really important with black and whites usually, because you know, clearly you've lost all your color information or discarded it, and so it really needs to rely on other things like texture or light and shadows and the play that happens with those.
Yeah.
And this does a great job with texture.
It does, yeah. And I'm trying to see. So I like the composition. And so to me, compositionally speaking, I feel like this is what I'm looking at. This is the main focal point of the image. All this stuff right here. It's very, you know, distinct and white, and there's a lot of contrast going on here. So my eye immediately goes to here. And then my eye wants to go over here, but I feel like there's just not enough room for it to feel like a well-balanced image. So I feel like you could have cropped a little bit this way or given this a little bit more breathing room. You know, one thing to notice and to think about when you're photographing an image and then converting it into black and white, or before you convert it into black and white, if you know that this image is going to be a black and white image, is you really need to pay attention. Values become a lot more important. Values in terms of like white values and light values and dark values, and so every shape becomes a value instead of, you know, a thing that's in the image, if that makes sense. So this bush, you know, it's a bush, but it's very noticeable because it's black. If the sand had been the same color, they would have been different objects, but they would have not really stood out from each other, or you know, you couldn't have separated them from each other. They would have blended in together. So things like this, you need to watch out for what things can be considered something that you may not want to crop out of the image. So for example, these bushes, I think I would not have wanted to crop out where I did, or where you did. this right over here. So I might have adjusted the composition a little bit, but I am really, really drawn to the texture and the nice tonalities right here. This is all really, really nice, and this is really cool. So maybe even close in right here.
That's what I was leaning towards. I mean, I always, you know, these images come in and I say, oh, that's nice, but it would be really cool if you just shot this instead. And, you know, it's always tough. But this tree here just has a lot of really awesome stuff going on. The texture in the bark, the twists, the turns, the lights hitting it from this side, and shadows over here, and those branches that are on the ground in the back that I think all belong to this one tree. A lot of strength there. It's really cool. I was wondering, you know, a compromise between this image and the kind of image that I'm having in my head is maybe a portrait shot here that showed the hill rising.
You crop this off.
Yeah, you wouldn't be able to get enough of that, would you? You're right. Yeah.
Make it work.
So I love the exposure, and I think your values here all look really good, and I think you did a nice job of that. But otherwise, I agree with what Christina said. This stuff up here chopped off a little bit. Pull back a little bit and get that, or tighten up and really focus in on something that's interesting, like that tree.
Yeah, when you approach a scene, just in general, try to identify what it is that your subject is. What is your focal point? There's always going to be a focal point. Even in an abstract image, there's always going to be something that your eye is naturally drawn to, and that's going to be your focal point. So really pick that, and whatever it is, whether it's a value, whether it's a shape, whether it's a tree, whether it's a person, just really make sure that you place that on the frame in a place where it's going to help your eye navigate through the rest of the image easily.
I think that's really great advice, and one of the things that us photographers often do is walk up to the scene and immediately put the camera up to our eye, and that changes the way we see the scene. It's really worthwhile to take a moment and take in what you're looking at without the camera in front of you and think about what your eye is drawn to. Then bring up the camera to your eye and reframe, keeping in mind what your eye was drawn to and making sure that you can use the elements in the composition to guide people to that same object, because it's going to look different through the lens because of the focal length you're choosing and all different kinds of factors. So I think that's a great note to end this general critique on. I'm going to stick around and throw in just a couple more that we haven't talked about, and just a reminder that this is coming out weekly. So pay attention and watch out for it as it comes. And if you have submitted a few times and you haven't got images critiqued and you're a little bit bummed about that, well, there is a solution. Patreon supporters do get instant access to me for not only questions, but also feedback on images. And those folks are welcome to use that, and some of them have. And I would welcome you to think about all the different ways you can support me and the value that you get out of this channel, Christina and I, and the value you get out of having somebody available to answer your questions and take the time to do so in a thoughtful and complete manner. So, thanks everybody for watching this. Thank you, Christina.
Thank you.
Let's take a few moments and run through some not critiques. And just a reminder that these aren't necessarily not critiqued because they are bad pictures or not worthy of critiques, but there might be a variety of reasons. We've covered one similar before, or we just didn't have as much feedback to give and spend time talking about. And we're going to jump right into it with this one right here. Roger shot this dog from behind, and that is my first issue with it. The black and white works well. The exposure is nice here, maybe a little hot in some of these patches, which means a little bright, but it's not the dog's best angle. If you were from the front and really captured him peering over this bench, that would be, I think, a much stronger image. And also we're cutting off the bench a little bit, so we either need to cut in more to be really deliberate about that, or shoot out a little bit wider and give a greater view. This is a cute photo, but we mention impact from time to time, and for the parent of this little, I'm going to say boy, it's, I think, a really cute moment enjoying snow, lots of snow, and it's fun. But for us, it doesn't really have a whole lot of impact, and just this intersection back here with this tree. If we could shift to the left just a little bit and frame our young man right here between these trees back here, I think we would be a little bit better off. Shooting at f4.5, I just want to see what lens you had there. The kit lens, 18-50 on the SL1, nice little Rebel. So you could go out to 50, back up a little, go out to 50, but keep your aperture as low as possible, which is I think somewhere around 5.6, and just kind of focus in just a little bit more. We'd get the idea of the snow in the background still, but yeah, cute. This picture looks otherworldly, and it actually reminds me of a picture we critiqued way at the very beginning of this years ago. And there's a lot of interesting aspects to this picture. I'm assuming this is the moon because we got the stars. Feel a little silly saying that. It's definitely the moon. And it's cool, but this purple feels very unnatural. I also didn't get a name, so sometimes we don't critique them because I got a name. First thing I'd do is check out the black and white. I think this is a much stronger black and white because we get away from that otherworldly look, and suddenly this seems like it could be something more natural. Really do love the light catching the bits of all of the kind of stuff in the foreground here. I think that's really nice. So black and white, I think that still needs a little bit more work. This is a cute moment. Again, this is, you know, if I was the parent of this little girl, then I'd have fun. This is a fun picture. But we got two big distracting things. One, this poor girl's got the ball right in her face and also looks like she's about to be hit. Not that it's that close, but she's kind of all leaning back. And this girl's face, checking things out. Maybe she's getting hit. And, you know, those things are distracting to me. And again, this is difficult in this case, Jorge, because, you know, you were trying to capture this moment and all that other stuff was part of it. But it's just a lot going on. And we even got the referee back there. But it's nice he didn't chop him off. He's got a little bit of breathing room. That's all good. And this, we had a big discussion about this. It was interesting, you know, this kind of glimpse through these two roofs to the snow coming down and the snow-covered tree and the wires. Really a lot to like about this image, but ultimately just didn't get critiqued. I'll just say there's a lot to like about this image. We went back and forth a little bit in picking the colors here. It feels a little bit warmish or sepia toned, which is probably pretty close to natural, but it doesn't look great. And it also, this area up here with the wires and fading into darkness in the corners feels a little bit busier. I think if we came down a little bit to avoid this intersection, we could create a stronger image that is a neat glimpse. Interesting watermark too. Does that barcode actually go anywhere? I'm always curious. So that was a small set of, not critiqued, I like to throw in there just to give you some ideas of the kind of images that, you know, usually do and don't make the cut. Ones like this are tough. Again, I don't necessarily find anything wrong with it. It just doesn't have a whole lot of impact for us, and then this is just kind of a fun moment. But again, not a whole lot of impact for a general audience, more something for the parent themselves. I hope that was helpful. As always, last week William went and edited his photo after hearing our critique about it and resubmitted a sample on Instagram. Love that. Love to see. I don't know if we gave much critiquing in the way of post-processing tonight, so that's not always possible. But if you've got any comments, questions, just leave a comment down below. Thank you so much for watching. Goodbye.